Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be able to talk about using bulb as a place for capstones and presentations. And really today we're going to dive into some real examples and look at different ways that you can put presentations in bulb and use our presentation mode and use our groups functionality for presentations as well. So we have a lot of great things to cover today. So let's get started by diving into some examples. And so I want to show you a variety of ways to do different kinds of projects in bulb. Okay, so diving in directly to looking at some of these projects and the different options that you have available, Caitlin here has several different projects. And this first one is a great example of how you could have a project that maybe students created where they wrote a paper on a Word document or a Google document and is able to embed that directly into the bulb page. And as the viewer, I can see this document. I can also click on that little X, that full screen, and pull it out to full screen. So if I'm the teacher and I need to read something off of it, or as a viewer want to dig into it some more, I can open it up even larger. And then she also had created a PowerPoint, which she's embedded right into Bulb. And as a viewer, I can interact with that PowerPoint directly on the Bulb page as well. And so one of the things that she did really well is that a lot of times, or she put context to the page. So a lot of times I see students who they'll just add the paper to the page and a title, and there's no context or reflection around it, or maybe just the PowerPoint that they created. And so one big tip is if you're going to add something to your portfolio, give a little bit of an introduction. What was the assignment about? Why did you add it to your portfolio? What was it meaningful to you? What did you learn from the project? What was your role in, if it was a group project? What were some of the challenges you have? Give us a little bit of introduction and a little bit of context, and it really helps step that portfolio and that evidence up to the next level. Showing you a different example, similar type of approach. The student created that assignment outside of Bulb. So here she actually had done a presentation, but instead of embedding that PowerPoint into Bulb, she actually saved that PowerPoint as a PDF and then embedded the PDF slides into Bulb here. So just another approach. You can kind of decide what style you like the best. And then she had her Word document of the report that she created that's embedded right into the page as well. So again, she did a great job of talking about, this is one of my favorite classes. This was a semester long project, giving us some details. How much time did you have to work on it? How much effort did it take? What was this, how did you approach this? What was it like working in a team? Those are great ways to give that audience that, that information that you need. Okay, so looking at one more, this was a capstone project. So this was actually a project that she worked on throughout the course, but it applies to smaller projects that students do as well. Again, great intro and context to there. She has her document embedded in that term project right into the Bulb page. And then it was interesting because she took some key things out of that project. You'll see that that was an 87-page paper that was put together as a group project. Again, this was a course-long capstone that she did. But then she talked about what they had to do for this class. This was something that was printed. They had to professionally bound it. So she's giving us some context in her portfolio around creating this project and actually taking out some of the fold out pages that were printed and putting them on there, and then having that reflection here. This was the project we did. So happy that's how it turned out. She was proud of herself and has that piece. Now I show you this one because I actually took this project that she had done here, and I want to show you what this would look like if you actually did this project inside of Bulb. So one of the things that you'll notice here on the paper is that anytime you have to have something printed, it's very flat. Um, and so one of the advantages of doing a project directly into Bulb is being able to use more interactive media. So here is taking that paper that she wrote and using a collection style. So creating a collection for the capstone and then individual pages, like you would consider chapters of a book, um, parts of a science lab, being able to divide out that content by individual pages. And so here's the first section, here's the case study, but look how much more interesting it is. I just copied and pasted this directly from the document into Bulb. You can type right into the Bulb page. Being able to pull some pictures in carousel style to be able to have and bring a little interest to the page. She has created her exhibit here and used that. And then one of the things she talks about is some of the opportunities and threats, and she's really looking at in this project around the labor force. And so she was actually able to, we could take and embed a video in here.
New this morning, Southwest Airlines is gearing up for what it hopes
From a news feed that talks about the things that they have, been researching. So now we're stepping up the level in the kinds of artifacts that can be added directly into that page. She has some of her opportunities and threats here. You'll notice this part, she just made the video a little bit smaller, wrapped the text around it, but this page is much more interesting to read than it is something on that is just printed within a Word document because of all the different things that she can do. It also breaks it up. So I'm at the bottom of section 1, and just like a chapter in the book, I can click on next and go to section 2. So what a great way to teach students how to break up content and to think about how to chunk that for us as the audience to be able to go through that. So now here's identification of key strategic issues and problems. And again, being able to bring in lots of different kinds of media. And then she has her bibliography at the end. So those are a nice contrast between that approach of like adding a project that might be done in another platform and making sure you add it to your portfolio so that you can keep those key projects from year to year and have all of that to show what kinds of things you and experiences you've had in school and the kind of work that you put forth in these projects. And then actually doing that project within Bulb and the different kinds of media and things that you can do to really showcase that project as well. So I always like to learn from examples. So let's take a look at a couple other examples. This is Preston Myers, and I love kind of the way he approaches his portfolio. He has a Who Am I, a Where Am I, a My Achievements, and then his Odyssey project. But I love within his My Achievements, these are more smaller projects or labs that he did in school. I love that he called them My Achievements. They're what he titles as projects and challenges that he's completed, and he has them all in one space. So it doesn't matter what class they're from, the different projects he's done are all in one collection. And if I open up this elephant project here, this is an example of what I would say documenting the process from start to finish. So he starts out with the purpose of the project. It was focused on raising awareness of endangered status of elephants. And so this is actually a real life application project. He did it as a team. They worked directly with the Dallas Zoo and actually got their piece used at the zoo. And so then he steps us through. The first step was the research, the kinetic sculptures, and he uses some visual images. So that's another big tip for students is to always be thinking about, and I would say in context, about every 2 paragraphs or so to have some kind of image, video, audio, something that engages the audience visually to showcase what you're saying in words on the page. And so he has a lot more images than that, but that's just a rule of thumb. Every 2 paragraphs or so should probably have some kind of visual image on there. And so he actually documents a lot of those steps. We're making gears in a program called Force Effect. He uses they're studying the gait of the elephant. There's a lot that's gone into prototyping this. And he is taking pictures along the way and walking us through, once we did this, then we did this, and we had to go back. This was a challenge that we ran into, and this is how we overcame it. And so this is really about documenting that project from start to finish. I'm going to scroll down because he has quite a few pieces in here. So here he has a picture of them actually presenting in front of the staff at the Dallas Zoo, getting that feedback of how it's going to work. They presented their prototype. He listed out that feedback and then documented the adjustments that they made before they had that final piece show up at the zoo. So he did a really great job using a lot of visual images and really documenting that process from step to step to step to step. Okay, so in addition to being able to just have your projects in your portfolio, there's a couple of other tools that you can use within Bulb to help actually use it as a presentation tool. So I want to show you some examples of what that would look like and how you might do that depending on how your work looks in Bulb. So when you open up a Bulb page, here's an example of a project or a professional development that one of our math directors and Bulb heads has done and keeps all of her presentations within Bulb. In that upper left-hand corner, Bulb has a feature called presentation mode. So when you click on present, do you see how it blows up kind of in PowerPoint style? And so directly from a page that's created, I could come in here and have this opened up. It is more scrolling. PowerPoint is more clicking from slide to slide. This would be a more scrolling approach. So just something to kind of be aware of. It's a little bit different style, but I can play my videos. I can walk through carousels and I can show all of the different content on here, and then be able to speak to that. You know, the same things apply when you're making a PowerPoint. You know, you don't want to necessarily read from the slides. You can have content on there, but being able to kind of scroll through the page to the content that you wanted. The advantage to this is then when you're done, you can simply share this link out to give to others so that they see and have all the resources available that you presented off of right onto that Bulb page. Now, let me show you what that might look like in a, oops, let me go back to this one. Remember how we showed that Southwest Airlines and we had the video here, and these are multiple pages within a collection for that capstone, remember? So that was what I showed you was a single page. These are multiple pages in a collection. And so I can click on presentation at the collection level so that I can show multiple pages. And I probably, you know, people aren't going to be reading this on the screen. So if you were doing something that had a lot of heavy text to it, you would need to probably scroll to be able to show those visual images that you wanted to talk through during your presentation, be able to play the video on here.
New this morning, Southwest Airlines is gearing.
You know, maybe be able to show some of those exhibits or things that you have. And then if you notice in the bottom, and it might be hard to see on your screen, but on the very bottom, I have some navigational tools in presentation mode. I can click next to go to the next page. I can click that little collection icon here, and this shows me my different pages so I can click back and forth, especially if I maybe wanted to skip some pages. And then I have my exit right here as well. So I have some great tools in terms of navigating multiple pages in a collection, and I can kind of showcase that collection. Let me show you another example. So this was a page that was created with like a lot of almost slide type graphics, and it was meant to go into presentation mode and then have some additional information on the page as well, so that it worked both for the presentation as well as being really easy to consume and read after the presentation if it was sent out. So if I clicked on present here, now you'll notice I could talk through with this picture. And it's like, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And so those questions that she asked during the presentation are also already on the page. So if she sent this out to someone who missed the presentation or someone who just needed a recap, that information is available. And then she could go to the next picture, talk about her presentation, go to the next picture and talk about it as well. So you can, here's another example that just has a couple, you'll notice it just has 3 images right on top of each other. So if you use this in presentation mode, I could play that video. I could then talk through this as I was going through my next slide. And then I could use this as my next graphic and talk through it going through my next slide. So one big difference is that when you're creating a PowerPoint, it is known that you should have very few words on it. You don't want it super text heavy. You want it very graphic heavy because you want to be speaking to the audience. The difference in using the bold page might be that you might have some of that text information that supports those graphics, but you might not be, you might kind of scroll through that part so that you're showing the graphics during your presentation, but then sharing out that page that has a little bit more context. So it's kind of used for both things, you know, to consume that project outside the presentation and to actually use that as a presentation tool. So presentation mode can be really powerful. Another feature that Bulb has that could work really great for projects and being able to easily kind of share information is a Bulb group. And so I want to show you some examples of how you can use groups for end of the year projects within your class. So here's an example from the University of Texas Long School of Medicine. And they always did a big poster project day. I think about, you know, science fairs, and we do, students do a lot of things where they're having big posters or things that they create, and then they're standing in front of it and giving short presentations or interacting with people, which is really beneficial for students. But sometimes we lack those opportunities and the time to be able to do that within our class. Or COVID hits like we're at now, and we are limited to the kinds of activities we can do. And so the Long School of Medicine, all of their students created a poster around a research project that they did. They posted, so you'll see Edward, Christy, Matthew, Ryan, all of these students created these individual pages in their portfolio, and then they published their page both to the public and to the group. So this actually became a public group space. And if you guys have any questions about how to set this up, talk to your customer success manager or reach out to help@bulbapp.com. We've actually done a lot of these with great success. So we can give you a lot of details on some additional tips on how to set it up. But you'll notice here that Edward has created his poster. And so I can look through that poster right now. This was saved as a PDF. And so you'll notice I have this little pop out button. So if it's too small for me, I could always zoom in, or I could always click pop out and be able to view it a little bit deeper there as well. But one of the things that I love is that each of the students recorded their presentation using our audio feature. So right within the Bulb page, they uploaded their poster that they've created, and then they recorded audio directly on the page, walking us through their research project.
I worked with the Residency Research Network of Texas, which is a group of family medicine residency.
So they recorded, and then I could listen to that presentation. And then you'll notice here that in this group, those who were looking at all the poster projects could leave comments. So that could be a great thing for class, is to have your students post their research, post their end of year project into a group. It doesn't have to be public. It could be just private within your class, and then have them go and view each other's stuff and leave comments, ask ask one question, leave a positive comment. The assignment might be go visit 5 of your classmates. It might go visit all of them. You could have, if they're doing group projects, you could have just each group publish one of the bold pages and poster projects up on here. But I love the idea of having them still practice that public speaking. And for some, this is a great tool because maybe they need a little bit of alternative instead of standing in front of the class, to be able to then just practice where they can rehearse that that speech. They can have it written out and just record it on audio and have that right on the page as well. So groups could be a great way to give students an opportunity to share the projects that they have going on with each other, or kind of within your school community. So the last thing I quickly want to cover is, if your students haven't already started their project and you might need a little bit of help thinking about a structure for them, templates might be a great way for your students to start. And if your students have already started their projects, some of those early examples might be a great way to use Bulb right now. And then maybe for thinking about for next year or for the future, developing or using one of our templates to help students capture their portfolios directly into Bulb. So we'll send out all these links, but I just want to quickly show you a couple of things that we have out there. Remember, a template is kind of a guiding pages or collections that help that students or anyone can copy into their own portfolios and then edit it. So it gives them a little bit of, here are the things that you need to put in. Here's the structure that we want you to do for these particular projects. So here's a capstone template: methods, discussion, conclusion, references. Here's another one, a little bit more detailed. And remember, especially when you have multiple pages that make up a project, especially if they're doing it over a long period of time, I could have my students have to fill out this topic selection process page and then just turn that one page into me so that I can view it, check it, make sure they're in good shape. And then as they go along, they're going to be adding to all these different pages. So there's some easy ways for us to share a single page, a student to share a single page with a teacher, so we can monitor pieces. And then ultimately they can then share out this entire collection with everything published inside of it as a total project. And they have that in their portfolio for life. Here's another one around like a passion project. Topic, idea pitch, what am I learning and researching, creating and designing, and then having my final presentation in there and some reflection. Here's a capstone that was created at Turner Tech out in Miami-Dade, and has the instructions here. Here's some bold tips, some important dates, so that all lives in their portfolio. And then they had to do, what's my marketing research, target market, positioning, competitive analysis, budget, metrics. So they're putting all those pieces in. And then they have some supplementary information that goes along with their capstones, their mission statement, their cover letter, social media letters of acceptance. And these are things that they're all doing for that class. So these are all templates that are helping them along the way. And so you'll see these are all created by teachers who are doing some really interesting work. And so there's great stuff, and these can all be found in our resource center, as well as I'll be sending out a bunch of links for those that are interested too. Here's PBL, define, ideate, prototype, test, implement. So hopefully giving you lots of different ideas around how you can easily create different templates and be able to help students along the way. This is a great example of, hey, you're going to add your own information in here, but I'm going to give you some graphics to remind you about the things you're doing at this stage in that capstone project.